Good evening, guys. Welcome to today's session. Today we have Umah Jacob and Jesal Thacker with us. The way the session is going to work is I'm going to give a brief introduction of our speakers. We'll engage in a moderated Q&A, and then we'll open it up to the audience. Thank you so much, Umah and Jesal, for being here. And I hope to have an engaging conversation with the two of you. So to begin, Umah is the Director of External Relations and Outreach at the India Art Fair, where she maintains responsibility for overseeing the fair's VIP and public programs and leads outreach with international and domestic partners, building links with art institutions, museums, and collectors. Previously, she has managed auctions and sales administration in modern and contemporary South Asian art at auction houses in India and the UK, including Bonhams and Christie's in London, and was the former sales coordinator for Christie's in Mumbai. She completed a bachelor's degree from St. Xavier's College, University of Mumbai, before going on to read her MA in History of Art and Archaeology at the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. Welcome, Umah. We have with us Jesal Thacker, who is an artist by training, but she chose to pursue scholarship in art instead of art practice. A graduate with a degree in painting from Sir J.J. School of Art, she set up Bodhana Arts and Research Foundation, a not-for-profit organization that engages with researching and publishing books on Indian art. She has curated several notable exhibitions, the first of which combine paintings and literary texts by Shankar Palsekar and so on. She's also curated exhibitions of Prabhakar Barve, Shanti Dave, Prabhakar Kolte, and most recently Jogen Chaudhary. She's assisted Ranjit Hoskote for the first India Pavilion participation in the 54th Venice Biennale in 2011, and Bose Krishnamachari for the first Yinchuan Biennale in 2016. One of her recent large-format curatorial projects called Rezone, Tracing Eco-Cultural Identities, opened at the CSMVS Museum in Mumbai earlier this year. Welcome, Jesal. I'll dive straight into it. And Umah, my first question is for you. Since you've done a lot of work with auction houses and fairs, what are the kind of collection patterns and strategies that you've noticed between these two, and if you see the kind of what are the kind of differences that one observes while working with them? You're on mute, Umah.
Sorry about that. First of all, thank you for having me, and hello everyone. This is an interesting question, because both auction houses and fairs, while they have a lot in common, they also have a lot that is different. And I think the main differentiator, and especially today, I'm going to be speaking in the context of South Asian art, because it is very nuanced and is, I think, different from general, I would say, larger Western auction houses in that market. With an auction house for South Asian art, it's largely the secondary market, because it's largely dominated by moderns. And so what happens is that, in a way, it acts as a very interesting entry point for a lot of people, because it is very transparent when it comes to, just accessing information. You can find out how much a work or an artwork is valued at. You can find out the provenance. You can see where it's been. You can see quite easily that it's up for sale or it's been sold before. So if you're someone who has no knowledge about the arts or has never interacted with the art market as such, and you're hoping to be a collector, it's quick. You can Google it, you can look at artworks, and you also know that, you are going with, on the basis of a lot of research and a lot of scholarship, and there's a clear trajectory normally. And I think that it's a tried and tested format. A lot of people know the moderns. It's something that you have heard growing up. You've heard about a Hussain, you've heard about a Souza. You know these names, so it feels comfortable. It feels like, though it's, of course, it's large amounts of money, you feel like it's weighty, and this is something that, there's a process, there's steps that you go through to acquire a work at auction. And essentially the work comes with provenance, comes with a guarantee. And that's why I feel that's how auction houses, especially for South Asian artwork, and key to it is that it's the secondary market. With an art fair, and especially talking about the case of the India Art Fair, it is the primary market. We are talking about a largely contemporary selection of works, while of course there are moderns. And everything is under one roof. So you will you're not, you're looking at a range of super contemporary art by emerging young artists to mid-career artists, senior career artists, to then the moderns, and you're looking across price points, across career trajectories, across mediums, and across art that's coming from all over South Asia. The problem here is that, unlike an auction house, it's not as transparent. So it requires a bit more effort. We try to make it as accessible as possible. But what you get is you get entrenched in just this world of art. You get to see everything under one roof. And I think the special thing about it is that, this is the time you can kind of understand your taste because you see so much, right? So I think it's easy for you to look at all of it and understand that, okay, I'm gravitating towards this kind of contemporary, super abstract works, or actually I love the overindulgent, sculptural, big in your face work, and that's my style. And, nothing is right and nothing is wrong, but you get to make that decision. And it's important to know that, at an art fair, it's all our wonderful galleries from across the country and also internationally. And so you can ask for prices, you can ask to make an inquiry, and then you move forward with your purchase. And I think it's interesting because here you are building provenance, right? It comes straight from the artist via the gallery, fresh to the fair, and then you acquire it, and you are that first point. You are building that provenance. So in terms of collection strategies, I think it's different people. I think a lot of people may enter via the auction route. A lot of young people I know then very often will enter through it because that's what they've heard from their families or from people that they know, and that's like kind of solid advice. Once you get into it, you're interested in the art, start exploring your community, and then maybe you move into the more contemporary scene. And then hopefully, you come to the art fair, you go to your galleries, you engage with the community. It's also at a different, I would say, price point. And it's, it grows that way. Whereas for an art fair, you can come in at a much lower price point. You can work your way up. You can also engage with living artists, with contemporary artists. You understand that, you are the patron. You can support the works of artists who have the same concerns as you because you're in the same time period, you're living in the same world. So it can be really interesting like that. And then through there, maybe you get a bit more confidence, and then you feel like, okay, I know my taste, I'm supporting contemporary. Now I'm interested in the moderns, or maybe you will never want the moderns. You're like, I don't want anything to do with them, I much prefer the contemporary, or etc. So I think these are the two kind of like entry points. Of course, the galleries being a huge part of it. We bring them together. So it's a nice way to start, and then hopefully you continue your relationship with your galleries. I think one of the most important things is that galleries are wonderful sources of education, of knowledge, of just bringing artists out to the world. And people shouldn't be afraid to develop their relationships, because I think most people that work in galleries are dying to talk to more collectors and are dying to engage with more folk in the arts.
Yeah, no, I think there are two very important and important trajectories that you sort of open up. One is sort of building new provenance, as you go. and at the same time also kind of understanding the fact that you're buying artists who are of the same time period. I think that is something that is very, very crucial, and that is something that an art fair, especially the kind that, especially the kinds that we have today, they offer those kind of opportunities, especially with all the parallel programs and all the institutional displays and things of that. I think, Jesal, that opens up my question for you actually, because you're somebody, a large portion of your work has been about building art histories, or rather writing art histories, uh, in a lot of cases forgotten ones, in a lot of cases, going back and literally, identifying certain artists, certain pieces, and then building up from there. Especially, like I had the privilege of seeing your exhibition on Prabhakar Barve at the NGMA in Mumbai. And again, one of the most fantastic exhibitions of, an artist that especially in the abstraction space, that I came across, especially with the way you had, brought in these publications and, the whole spatial nature of it. I'm sure because of this kind of work, you would have also had the privilege of interacting with some very interesting collectors who would have, had the eye to go for somebody like a Barve, somebody like a Madhav Imarte. So what has been your experience like, and what kind of what is it that stands out amongst these kind of collectors, especially when you're working on it curatorially?
So, yeah, thank you for having me on this panel. I think these kind of discussions are very important, and I think galleries and art fairs are, encouraging these conversations, which is very good. And a special thanks to India Art Fair, because they have been consistently bringing in education as part of their outreach program. I mean, it's not just a fair about sales. So one of the things I want to point out is that observation is that over the past few years, art isn't restricted only to commerce. Education about it, discussions about it play a huge role in promoting and collection building, you know. um, and that is something I really appreciate about our industry. I appreciate the openness, where we're not restricted only to the five names, you know. um, we're not restricted only to the moderns. We're even amongst the moderns, we're looking at the different moderns, right? And we're kind of re-looking at modernism per se. um, so collection building. So what I have observed when I worked on the Barwe show and even Gaitonde, the book. Why I'm bringing Gaitonde is because one should understand. So, when I was working on these artists, they were not so well known. Even price points wise, they were like not so much in the auctions like Gaitonde was, but not at the price that he's today. Um, so what I want to say is that it was a very different approach. The collectors were also very, very, very open in sharing their content and their material, because they were happy that an artist that they admired is getting researched or getting written about or is being exhibited. Um, so in the process of studying these two artists, that is Prabhakar Barve and Gaitonde, I came across collectors who are the old time collectors who bought these artists like, years ago, like 20 years ago. And like few of them I know because they tell me the stories. They didn't even have the money to pay for the entire amount. I mean, what was it? It must have been like maybe 5,000 or max 20,000. 20,000 is also expensive. But they paid in installments to get the work. Like I know someone who paid in installments to get a Gaitonde that they have. Now, what I want to say is, and it's very critical, at that time there was no art education. It was just a discerning eye. It was just an interest by these few who collected these artists. Of course, people were buying the Razas and the Hussains, But to buy someone like a Gaitonde and a Barve at that time was again very limiting. There were very few people who bought these names. See, we have to understand another thing, that I feel abstraction as an art form in India is still not properly studied or written about, or people jump into. It's mainly the very narrative. Okay. um so the people who've bought these artists, who've bought a Barve or a Gaitonde, I feel they were very few, extremely few, and they were very possessive about their collection. All of them had direct interactions with the artist. They were buying it through the galleries, of course, but they all had a direct relation with the artist. And this is where I feel that the art fair again plays a very important role, because when you interact with the artist, it makes a lot of difference. It gives you the confidence to buy the art. Correct? So in the middle, I'm sorry, I'm just jumping up and down, but I'm just trying to make a point here, is that there was a phase in the middle when it was only auctions, galleries, and there was no mediating point where the collectors could understand what the art is, or understand what is this artist, or know what the artist is. And I feel art fair is playing that role, and it's been playing this role for many years. So, I mean, I would not actually call it just a fair. Fair gives it a very commercial title, but I see it as a platform of exchange and education, right?
Totally.
So, coming back to what my question is. So, collectors were very open to sharing their stories, lending images, and all of that. Now, what happened when I did the Barve show at NGMA was that I got a lot of support from the collectors, because Barve was a forgotten master. People knew him, like he's been written about, Geeta Kapoor has written about him. He's a well-known artist, but nothing happened. Okay. So at one level, I got a lot of support from collectors who owned their works. Okay. These are all again old collectors. None of them are new. I mean, none of them are the young ones. And what did it do? It helped build a new story, a new idiom of Indian modernism. It brought two new artists. I mean, I don't want to give credit to my show or to my book on Gaitonde, but it played a role to bring those artists in the limelight, back in the mainstream narration, and it opened up an interest in many other collectors. So, for example, the Gaitonde book that I've brought out, okay, it was a sheer labor of love, okay, and I don't have a single copy left. It's all sold out. I get calls even today, like people just come to my office. We want a book on Gaitonde. Please give us. कहीं से भी निकाल के दे दो. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not just research, it's not just an intellectual process, it's a conviction on the artist. So because that's how I've worked till today. Like I worked on Gaitonde and Barve not because somebody asked me that, oh, we are paying you when you do this. It was a sheer labor of love and my faith in the artists. Okay, so I feel that in all of this very underlying idea of faith, okay, kind of sustains all of us. It sustains the entire industry. Okay. So the work that I did on Barve and Gaitonde, for me, the interaction with collectors who own them and the opening up of it to a whole new interest in young collectors, even in well-known collectors. Like I don't want to name, but they've been very well-known collectors. Like see, Barve is kind of Bombay and Maharashtra. But today, museums, like a pioneering collector, who's like Mrs. Nadar, and she's looking at, her interest grew in Prabhakar Barve. So you feel very rewarding when the work that you've done and the artist is getting due. That also after so many years of the artist passing, away, it kind of builds a new structure, a new way of looking and broadening this entire thing of Indian modernism, according to me. The same thing is for Ganesh Haloi, right? I mean, again, an abstraction. But he's still maybe, I would say, better known than these two. But the book that we did, Natasha and myself edited, it brought in a whole new ideology and reading about the artist and his association with the Ajanta. So, of course, exhibitions do help, but I would insist and persist that we are, if we as an industry can do more and more publications, because it's very difficult to do publications in India. And I mean, if this is being recorded and it's going to be out there, I'm appealing to everybody out there to consider this, because an exhibition, yes, you see it and it stays, it impresses upon you, but it is the book that stays for posterity. Yeah, and it's not a catalog. When I mean a book, it's a book which is well researched, well documented, tracing the artist's biography and the important departures, the important, his influences. It's very, very, very important. And even for cataloging provenance and documenting things, I'm sure this is something Uma would, agree and understand, because she's worked in auctions, that cataloging and exhibition and publication history is very important for artworks. You know, you're muted.
Completely, I could not agree more. And even now, I mean, on just contemporary art itself in India, there's just a dearth of,
Yeah.
actual scholarship. Like, there are so many young people that come to me and say, "Oh, can you suggest a few books? Can you give me a bibliography, of how do I do this? How do I get into it?" And you struggle because
Yeah.
either they're like exactly like you said, the catalog kind of books, with a few essays dedicated to that exhibition on a few artists. You don't have kind of monographs, you don't have critical scholarship on the scene today, on artists today, on the emerging set.
Yeah.
And that's very, very, very important. I couldn't agree more.
So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question precisely, but now what I even want to say is that after doing these shows, there is even a responsibility that I feel I hold, because a lot of people kind of, consult me and then ask me for um, younger artists, or I mean, my viewing or my reading about other artists, and um, so one has to be then even be very careful with the other shows one curates after doing, these kind of things, because then what you're doing is basically giving out a message that the way I had the faith in Barve, I had the faith in this artist, right? So um discerning, I mean, I keep using this word a lot recently, that one has to be very discerning, you know um and I do a lot of shows of young artists or even mid-career artists, and it's not, again, just about doing a show. It's about positioning that artist in the context of the current historical framework. Not that we really have any framework, it's very fluid, but positioning that artist in what's the existing narratives. So yeah, I feel that, we need to have many more museums. We need to have a publishing house dedicated only to research based art books. um, we need to have discerning collectors, and they are discerning. I feel that the collectors data, I mean, the way they look at art today, the questions they ask, it's no more just a mere decoration. Yeah, it's no more that. um and that, I think, as an industry, as a collective industry, we've achieved, but we have a long way to go.
think it's this idea of a book and this idea of a publication becomes very important, and especially I think in the post pandemic situation and scenario, uh, because that was actually one of the first times that people actually got to sit and really look at the collection that was there in a lot of cases and scenarios. Uma, do you think, because your interaction with this particular space is a lot more in terms of also, through galleries, through collectors, through the fair. Have you noticed some kind of a change post-pandemic in people in the way in which they're looking at things?
Yes and no. I would say yes, in ways where, the biggest difference to me is that it has encouraged a lot more younger people to be seriously interested in the arts, for them to honestly, I think if you just look at the pandemic, and you look at what that did for so many of us at home, and then you had time, you had access by the internet to the world. You were questioning a lot about yourself, your culture, your identity, your community. And I think a lot of people were led to the arts through it. You were consuming a lot of images virtually, and somehow you would find yourself kind of, oh, maybe I should think about this. So I think it started with an interest. It started like that. And we see post-pandemic, I've seen and it's super encouraging, because in India, of course, we have one of the youngest populations in the world. And I think there's this very interesting demographic that we work with that is, between the ages of, let's say, like late 20s to about late 40s, where this is that generation that has, I would say, that first generation that has traveled the world, worked abroad, come back, gone to museums, seen culture. Like India is entrenched in culture, but that, museum going thing about, art, collecting it, having it in your home, even if it's a print, do you know what it means? Why do you have it? And just like Jesal said, they are now, because you're equipped with knowledge and the ability to find out anything about anything, they're all so curious, and they all have all kinds of questions. And it's no longer about the monetary aspect, or it's no longer about those annoying questions of, oh, will this become double in 3 years, and then in 10 years it will become 10 times. But I think there are, like, it's more about, how can I support my community, how can I show my personality, how can I meet a bunch of like-minded people, where's the culture, I need something deeper rooted. I have a corporate job, or I have a life with responsibilities. Where is the respite? And for a lot of them, we saw post-pandemic that it was like this huge, deep hunger, of course, to engage with art. Funnily, in 2022, we had the art fair. It was supposed to be in the regular January time. Then we had that wave of Omicron, so we postponed it. So then the dates we found were 28th April, I remember, to like the 1st or 2nd of May. And I remember us thinking, are we crazy? It's Delhi. Who is going to show up? And, on that opening day, it was 48 degrees and a heat wave in Delhi. And I remember, everything was ready. And I remember looking at at my colleague Jaya, and she's like, okay, do you think everything is set? And I look at her and I'm like, yes, everything is set. And she's like, what? And I said, I don't know if anybody's going to show up. It's 48 degrees. It's 11 a.m. It's Delhi. It's disgusting. The galleries are sweating. Our generators are bursting into flames, literally. But I kid you not, we had such a huge response. Every single day of that art fair, we had to shut our gates early because we couldn't take the crowds that were coming. And they were across major existing collectors to new collectors to just students interested to, people that had never wanted to do anything with the arts, now suddenly there to see and experience it and be in it. And I think for all of us, that was just such a huge moment to think about, wow, it really is that time. I think it's that inflection point where you really see this kind of hunger and interest.
I think if I can just add here, it's even a lot to do with camaraderie. I think
Yes,
people are there to support
yes,
one another,
absolutely,
which is, if you see, has developed through the pandemic in our, yeah.
completely through
We
your
are
community.
we show the community has started showing the support and stand for each other. So
Completely. I couldn't agree more, and that's where you could just see it come to fruition. And then there's this other aspect, I'd like to mention here is this, so it's community and patrons supporting artists. But then another really interesting thing in the pandemic was artists supporting artists. So with smaller movements like Art Chain India, and things like that, where a simple, wonderful idea that, you put your work up for sale, and every time you make 50,000, you pledge to invest a small amount of that back into another young artist's work, and it was this kind of beautiful chain. And again, based on community, on peer support, on just, kind of this complete need to feel you're part of something, and to feel supported, and to be able to support others.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, it, of course, I'm not meaning to paint a wholly rosy picture. It was also post-pandemic. The art world has survived because of people's efforts through the pandemic. It's because of people clawing their way to make sure they keep their galleries functioning. They keep staff on as much as possible. Institutions try to pivot, do things online. Everyone tried. And it's because of that, also that we're able to, we survive, and we're able to move into like a post-pandemic situation. But I think largely those were the trends. I think another trend that we notice is that with everything going digital, a lot more galleries and a lot more just organizations that were commercial also started to be more transparent about pricing and putting them out there, putting, prices out there, which also then for a lot of people took out that barrier of art being just completely unaffordable and completely exclusive and she and closed. People felt like they could approach. And I think that also kind of wedged the door open a little bit for a whole other set of people that probably just thought it was too snooty or thought it was too intellectual for them to get into. And I think simple things like transparency of what is available, what is for sale, how much is it, you know, thinking about things like that happened during, like, because everything was, digital and had to pivot, and things became a bit more transparent. That helped, I think, a large segment of the population to finally feel comfortable that, oh, okay, not everything is like 1 crore. There are young artists that I could support, instead of buying my expensive handbag or going to Goa like 5 times a year. I can also support an artist and get something that means something to me, build that relationship. So I think that, I feel like post-pandemic, you just saw so much of, in so many ways, especially in the art world here, because we all know it's so much smaller, it's so much more kind of integrated. There's so much more, we're so much younger in a way. It's like art world and community than other parts of the world, that you can easily make connections. People are more open. People, are ready and willing to connect and see if there are opportunities for collaboration to do more. And like Jesal said, the interest we found then in education was huge. So post the pandemic, our workshops were oversubscribed. We did so many talks that people wanted online. We had so many requests for, just like small activations, larger activations. Everything was, because people were hungry for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Uma, for that. Jason, my next question is to you. Because you've worked in the Venice Biennale India Pavilion, and also with Bose at Yinchuan. What are the kind of differences that you see in the arts ecosystem that are available over there, as a collector, maybe a seasoned one, a young one, that you feel that that's something that we could also have, or maybe that we could learn from?
So, again, a couple of thoughts here. I'm just going to try and streamline them. So see, the Venice Biennale is a much larger platform. It's to do with countries, and it's cultural platform for different countries. Yeah. So there's no patronage, one patron supporting it or anything. It's the country participates, the India Pavilion participates, right? Of course, then curator is chosen, and then they present the works, and the kind of viewers that come there. Again, it's not, see, like I've heard stories of a lot of our old collectors. How did they become collectors? They just were going to an art fair or saw an exhibition at Jahangir and they liked an art and they picked it up. So again, in the Venice Biennale or any of the Biennale for matter, it is not only collector driven. I would like to say that even for the fair. But what it does, it develops collectors. Okay? It opens that door for people to who is a collector, who is a patron, who is supporting the art of a particular culture. The value actually doesn't matter, according to me. The value, let's keep it separate. That's another panel discussion. But anyone who's supporting the art of a particular culture is a patron, right? So what these biennales do is, it opens up. I'm talking about Venice and the Yunchan and not the Kochi, but I am going to talk about Kochi. Is that what Venice did was that it opened up the door of Indian contemporary art to the world there. Like people saw who are the Indian artists. Like when I assisted, there was Zarina Hashmi, Gigi Scaria, Desire Machine Collective, and Praneeth Soy. Now, of course, Zarina is Zarina. I mean, she doesn't really need a Venice for a support, correct? But today, what Gigi presented, look at Praneeth Soy, okay? So, a Biennale gives that, and it's not just collectors, it's curators, it's museums, it's world. It's a world ecosystem, right? But what happened in Yunchan, it was a collector who owned the museum who was commissioning the Biennale. See, there's a big difference in the two. Okay. So again, it's up to the curator. What art they're bringing, because then it's not restricted to Indian art per se, correct? It's again world art. So both the formats and the experiences for me were very different, right? So what happened in Yunchan, I was assisting both, and the curation was from all over the world, the whole concept, and how this private collector, this private patron in Yunchan was supporting this Biennale. Like she doesn't need to support world art, right? She can just support her Chinese art or Chinese artists. She could just focus a Biennale only on that. But look at the outreach. Look at her larger vision. She's actually supporting world art, and she's been doing, like, the museum has been doing biennales after biennales. Correct. So there are two different approaches, and it's very interesting. Think about it, like somebody in India as a patron doing a biennale, correct? And then sponsoring the entire thing. I'm putting all my wishes out there. I'm using this as a platform to say all my wishful thinking, right? Now, what is Kochi doing? Okay. So first for me, it's hats off to Bose, okay, for what he's done, Bose and Riaz, as artists, where they put their practice. I mean, they are practicing artists, but they kind of put that practice aside, and they dedicated their time and life to building a platform in India, Biennale, which brings in art from around the world and opening Indian artists and even Indian mindsets and the Indian ecosystem to this whole idea of a Biennale. So these are three completely, all are Biennales, but three very different models and approaches. And We need more and more of them, for sure. We need more books, we need more biennales. Are you frozen?
Video translating our, you're translating our language into corporate speak so that they understand that they should be investing, and because it's so intangible,
Yeah.
we're trying to get them to fund something for crores of rupees, and then the artwork in the end will melt and go away, and they're like, what the hell are you telling us you want to do? But the thing is, we've been working with with our partners BMW for years, and you can see they're super intelligent, they want to do good, but it's also about us going out there and trying to understand how to get funding. So you work with corporates, you work with them 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Very soon they themselves then have become patrons. They enjoy it. They understand the importance of it. They see the impact they're making. We need big corporates to support. We need people to understand crowdfunding. We need to find alternate ways, and it's possible. It's just
Yeah.
about educating.
Yeah, and we should not stop because you don't have that. You have to still continue doing it. I mean, yeah,
I think so. Maybe the Iram Learning Initiative is the first step towards that. Of course, we are doing this more or less pro bono, and our whole idea is to kind of bring more and more awareness at various spectrums of the art world. May it be the artists, may it be the collectors, may it be art fairs, curators, so on and so forth. I think what I wanted to say probably is this not the right time. I would not want to halt your session. Maybe me and all of us can have a separate discussion over that.
sure,
True.
sure. I'm just putting it out there again that
Please,
all
please.
possible.
It's all I love your energy, I love your enthusiasm, I love the positivity, and I'm with you. It's just that we all as an industry have to figure out innovative ways of uplifting all of us together, kind of a thing.
Absolutely. See, Rome wasn't built in a day. So,
Sure. Satyajit, if you would like to
Yeah,
please
I'm back. Sorry,
yeah.
I just had a major power out in the office. So, yeah, sorry. So, Uma, thank you for that, Jesal. I couldn't get the last bits. I just conked out. But Uma, my next question is to you. How do you think young collectors can best make use of art fairs? And how do you think that could help them make better informed decisions?
Sure, I'm more than happy to talk about this. First of all, let's talk about this term young collectors, right? What I would like to interject is that when we say young collectors, we mean young in your journey of collecting, right? So you can be, 60 plus, but if it's your first artwork that you're collecting and it's the first time you're interested, you are a young collector because you're young in your journey. And just drawing from the points before, I think the art fair is a great way for young collectors to kind of start their journey. The first thing I would say is to see as much as you can. Look at everything. Really look, not only with your eyes, but your mind and your whole body. Look at everything that's there. It can be quite overwhelming, but like I said, it helps you to build your taste. It helps you to understand what you like, what you don't like, what makes you feel, in different kinds of ways. So just that umbrella aspect of being able to see, the best of what the country has to offer, to see what, Indian artists side by side with major international artists, to see the aesthetic, to see that difference, to see those nuances. That's your first step. Secondly, we have been building something called a Young Collectors Program for the past, I think, 4 editions of the art fair. And it's really grown into one of our most beloved properties because it does bring together this amazing community. I think more and more, like we were talking earlier, so many of us think about, so many of us, especially interested in the arts, interested in culture, if you're not working in it, you often wonder, where do I find my people? Where do I go, where I feel comfortable, where I feel understood, where I'm engaging with this different side of me that I feel is very important. And that is this place. So through the program is also a place to build community. We do things, the way it was conceived is that you do things on site at the fairgrounds, but then you also do things off site. So this is also an opportunity to be able to go to artist studios, to go to smaller galleries that might not be showing at the fair yet, to go to small arts organizations and weird theaters in different corners of the city, to explore that scene and to understand that this exists in your city. Is, I think, one of the most interesting things. I would also say that, going back to education, this is the opportunity. You are really interested in the arts, you really want to think about collecting, this is the opportunity to attend as many talks as you can, to go to workshops, to go to every single curated walk there is on different themes with different curators, So you're getting this amazing, super intense crash course free education on the arts, and on the arts, primarily from South Asia, but also a healthy dose of really excellent international art that's very difficult to come across in the country, except for in like a few major institutions, and also juxtaposed against all kinds of, art by artists from all different times in their lives and different stages of their careers. So I think that way it's a super interesting spot. It's also, we at the art fair, one of our biggest mandates is to try and make the art accessible. So we're talking about, while there is definitely a huge place for critical writing, scholarly, academic publishing, I feel like there's also a place to make it more accessible, to get people in, to be more welcoming, to understand that in the end, we're here for the art, and art is fun. Art is, meant to be consumed and enjoyed and felt. And I feel like this is something that you can experience, in a rush, in a concentrated manner during those days of the fair. Train your eye, build your community, find your community, understand through education, the scene around you, what's going on, what's happening, what's current, but also to understand historically, the history of kind of modern art, the history of, aesthetic taste and design and craftsmanship in the country. And I think that way it just plays a super important key role. And then you take away from that, right? You building relationships with the galleries, with the artists that you then hopefully carry on through the year, So I think that also is something where it really helps young collectors. And what is a collector, like Jesal said, right? I mean, you can buy a small editioned print, from an artist, and you are a collector, according to me. You are a patron and you are a supporter of the arts. I think things like this are very important. Prints, multiples, edition pieces, beautiful books very often become almost collectibles. We all know how much we treasure, gorgeous books, and to know that even those are part of the arts, and that is also part of you being a patron. You're spending your hard-earned money thinking that I'm going to support this art, I'm going to support this artist, this curator, this writer, this this institution. I think is a huge part of it, is to be able to explore all these different ways to also start your collecting. It doesn't have to be straight away you buy an artwork. Many of us, I think most of the people I know, including me, you start when you're young and you start by a little book, and then you get a little zine, and you get a little poster, and then you get an edition print, and slowly, as as you grow and as you build your thing, you slowly start to get more confident and you build that, right? But that's how you begin to also understand that there is always an entry point. There's always a way if you want it that badly, you know.
So the entry point is the book, huh?
Yeah, I think so. 100%.
Great.
Jesal, you answered my next question briefly when you talked about the impact of exhibitions on provenance and on market and stuff like that. But I'd like to rephrase the question and ask you this. What do you think was the impact that these curated exhibitions, especially shows like the Barve show? I specifically speak of that is because that's something that it's etched in my memory. It's etched in my memory, and that's the only reason I keep saying the name out and out again. But
you're not alone, Satyajit. Just to interrupt here, if I was you, I would be like that Gaitonde show. That for me is the one where I was like, wow. So yeah. Don't blame yourself. I think we all want to know.
So I'm just on a side note, Jesal. So I was actually working on my print show for Latitude around the time that I saw that show of yours, and again, it like my print show was like a 3.5 year in the making. And when I entered the Barve show, I'm like, this is exactly what I have been wanting to do. This is exactly what needs to be done. And I was so happy. Oh God. So Nikhil Purohit, he was the one who actually got me along. He's like, there's a show on Barve. I'm like, who is doing a show on Barve of all people in the world? I'm like, who is this mad person? I want to know who's doing this show on Barve. So but either which way, so coming back to my question, what was the impact that that exhibition had on the collectors who had actually bought these works back in the day? Do you think that, I mean, what do you think changed in their minds when they saw that? Did they have a completely different take on it after that?
On the collectors who had bought the works, who
Yes.
owned those works?
Yes.
They were elated. That's all. So, okay, so as I'm again and again trying to say, and I think I'm just going to spell it out, the earlier collectors are very naive. They literally bought art for the love of it. I'm not saying that the new collectors don't, but there is a certain investment strategy or something of that sort at the back of the mind, because even the value of art has changed. Okay, so again, what I'm trying to say is that the see, I was not, you have to even understand something, that I'm not a gallerist. As an independent curator, I approached all these people. Okay, and again, I'm putting it out there that I'm extremely grateful to each one of them. Nobody denied me a work. They all were supporting that, no, we will give you. And that's a huge support any creator can get. Okay, please understand, I'm not a gallerist, right? So I don't come with that clout. So Harsh, if that just gives you an answer, okay, you don't need deep pockets. Okay,
I'm going to call you. I'm going to call you after this talk, and we are going to have a long session. I really need to pick your brains.
So okay, so they were elated and they're extremely supportive. Now I want to talk about the Barve show. I have to give context, I have to give examples. Okay, see, now I'm doing a Jogin Chaudhary show, which is completely different. You have to understand, see, Jogin Chaudhary is also a very important artist, but he's very famous. He already is. My curation is not going to add anything according to me. It's a very humble thing, right? It's different. The whole approach is different. Of course, I'm putting in the research. There's a new context and everything. But the dynamics is very different. The artist is alive. There's a gallery involved. We are deciding whose works we want to borrow. It's different. In you have to understand, in case of Barve, even as an artist, he was not very prolific. So there weren't so many works. Okay, so whoever I went to was an ardent admirer of Barve. It was very soulful. Please understand, it was not something done with studies. See, today, as Uma is pointing out, that today even the collectors who buy art today, they want to get educated, they want to know, right? There's an entire history, they ask all these questions. Back in the days, they didn't.
Yeah.
It was clear relationship, love of the work, which was not even for decoration. Please understand. At that
Yeah.
time, the people who Gaitonde and Barve, they had no idea. Okay, and Gaitonde's paintings are also not very like pretty looking, yeah. Please understand, they're quite
No, no, they're like abstract and weird, and I mean,
right.
for a
So
normal household to have them in the house, it would have
it's
been
a
like, what
lot.
is this?
So,
Yeah.
what did they do for these collectors? Okay, I'm answering again. None of them lent me the works with the intention that putting it in the show is going to increase the price. None of it was there. At least for the projects that I've done, which is the Barve and the Gaitonde thing. The collectors I have interacted with, they've been very supportive and they were very happy to lend their works. There was no pressure as such on my mind, and the show traveled to Delhi. So the loan traveled to Delhi. So so I see this change and difference also of the collector base. The new collectors are nothing like the old ones. Please understand, the old ones just bought it for the artist, or sometimes to even support the artist, because at that time art was not very big, the values were also very small, and the artists were technically hand to mouth. I mean, let's be honest, right? So you have to understand the sentiment and the emotion was very different. You cannot compare an old Gaitonde collector to a new Gaitonde collector. Very different.
True.
The new Gaitonde collector is paying 50 crores. Okay, it's either a museum or someone who knows what they're doing with the money. The old collector bought it for 50,000 and bought it out of love and didn't know what they were doing with the money. There's a different mindset.
Yeah.
And I don't blame it. I'm not blaming anyone here. You have to understand the whole ecosystem has changed. The
Yeah.
whole outlook of life and finance and art has changed, right? So, but because you asked me this question, I'm saying it. This is the difference. So I
Yeah.
didn't have any new collectors who lent me works for the Barwe, because no new collectors had Barwes.
Had Barves at that.
It was all the very old people, you know, Purane collectors, who are like shocked and who were just very happy, who came to see the show and they were just happy, really happy. I know happy just may just not sound like a very prominent term that I'm using, but it's simplicity, like they just came and they were just, I know some people who came 2 3 times and they were just so elated to see Barwe get this due. And for me, that was it. For me, that was, I succeeded as a curator. That's it. What
But
what more can I ask for? So none of these works were on sale. None of them were doing it because they wanted the price of their work to go up. It was a non-commercial, purely education show as a labor of love.
just out of curiosity, in back in the day, there was hardly any documentation or, like I'm assuming there were probably no galleries involved. These were all direct transactions between the artist and the collectors. How did you, it would have been a daunting task, first of all, for you to map down who the collectors are in the first
So,
place.
so luckily, I mean, the family, had some archival material, and we had access to who the collectors were, and I've been working on it. I've been working on Barve and Gaitonde for like 10 years.
Wow.
And
Okay.
again, as I said, it's been word of mouth and good faith that one connected me to the other connected me to this. It was one after the other after the other. That's how I got in touch with people. I'll be very honest. Like I
Hmm.
would go and meet this one collector, and I'm sorry, I can't take names because it's all
Of
very
course.
private. But
Of
I would
course.
go and meet this one private collector, and she would be like, "Hey, I know even this person had," because they would all be buying together.
Right.
So that
And there
was
would
their
be kind of,
network.
and they would have kind of formed an informal club of like a Burmese
No, no,
collector.
that's what. See, this is our new thinking. There was no club. There was
No, no,
nothing.
it's maybe the word I'm trying to use is not relevant then, but the meaning remains the same, that they would love to have shared their work with other collectors who have the same artist work. and talk about it and talk over it, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
That's
and the other thing I want to point out, that the art collection back then was not very open. People were not very open about what they were buying, like the way they are now.
Yeah.
Today, art buying and art collecting is a matter of pride and showing.
Mm,
Back then, it wasn't.
right.
Yeah. But I was very fortunate that I got the support, and there was even galleries put me on to collectors. So there was no, you see, because I come from a space of, as a research, no, I have no vested interest, right? So,
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
so it was a very meandering, easy way, but it took 10 years because it's not easy to work on projects like this on your own, like funding, finance, doing things on your own, managing things, and one step at a time, one step at a time. So now, when now when I when I get invitations from galleries or anyone, or and they're like, okay, we want to do this show and next year, and I'm like, I can't do it. So I tell people I need 2 years, 3 years. So I
Right.
have a certain impression, when people say that Jesal means she's like a tortoise, like she will, which is okay. I don't mind, you know.
Right. Right.
But I want to share something more here. Is sometimes when you do curated shows, especially of very old artists, I would like to give an example of Shanti Dave here. Is that when I curated his show at DAG, I myself discovered something about him. And that's very important. Like at times, we all have a certain impression of an artist, of a certain kind of work, and that's it. But when you dwell deep into research and going into what was the artist doing actually, how did it all begin,
Mm,
you see what the birth is,
mhm.
and your conception, your perception changes.
Sure.
And then it's important to present the show, to curate the show in that manner, so that you can come out with that narrative.
Correct.
And that's important according to
Right.
me.
True.
Thank you, Jesal,
Okay,
for
I can
that.
go on, but I'll stop.
No, it's always a pleasure to know about these curatorial journeys, and to know about the ways in which people looked at works at a particular point of time. Now, as I said, like the day Nikhil told me there's a show on Barve and somebody's curated a show on Barve, I was like, I need to go, here, and I need to see this happening. So my last question to the two of you, any collection that you are personally in love with. It could be a private collection, it could be a museum collection, or something of that sort.
Maybe I'll start here because I think Jennifer might have seen some very interesting ones. So I'll just go with like some big fat ones for now. I think off the bat, just here, I think internationally, one of my favorites is the Boros collection.
Mm.
It is a collection put together by Karen and Christian Boros, based in Berlin, and it is housed within an actual World War II bunker. And it's probably one of the most fascinating collections and experiences I've had. The way they run it is that they have about 700 or so works in their collection, and obviously the bunker is not big enough to display all of them together. So every 4 years they change the hang. The artists have been chosen by the collectors, Christian and Karen, and they're from around like 1990 works till they're still collecting, contemporary. And what I loved about it is that, the whole experience of viewing that collection adds to the art. So they open it like for 2 slots in the day, not even every day. You have to book in advance. Then you stand in a damn long line, waiting to get in because it's a closed space. It was an actual bunker. So they work with this, forgetting the name of this, Jen's, I had written it down for us, with this amazing architect who then helped them to convert the bunker. So some of it, he's made it kind of into a white cube, and he separated the bunker out so that some spaces were like white cubes. And then some of it he left with that original flooring, and you can see the iron, and you can see the metal, and you can see the old kind of, these grids inside. And it's all underground. So you enter and then you go underground. There are no windows, there's no natural light. And the collection is, for want of a better word, it's hard, It is a collection that, I think every time you see it, even if you're seeing the same things, depending on your own life and depending on how you're moved in your kind of psyche, in your work, in your practice, it could mean different things to you, because it's unapologetic. It's not pretty works, it's not pleasing works. It's works that elicit an emotion. So he has these like very odd Sarah Lucas works, and Wolfgang Tillmans. Of course, there's Olafur and Ai Weiwei, but also a lot of Berlin artists, and artists from that kind of scene, where it really gives you a sampling of, cold, hard kind of look at contemporary art, and it situates you, I think, almost in the history of the city, but in this very different way. And I love it. I think it's just so, that experience is just so wonderful. It adds to the works. And I would recommend that anybody who's traveling to Berlin, in advance, go online and book your slot and wait in that line, because it's completely and totally worth it. I think that's one of my favorites. And then I think in India, and also just internationally, I'm in love with the Devi art collection. I think they have a wonderful, nuanced collection that spans, just contemporary visual art, like traditional folk, and beautiful craftsmanship, textile, huge focus on women artists. Lekha was collecting this when no one else thought about it, and no one else thought that these would be worth anything, or any scholarship or anything. I think she just did it out of like this need to explore the scene, and I think it's just a wonderful collection. And I also really love what they're doing currently to really work to catalog the whole collection and then make it available to researchers and curators and scholars and just everybody to be able to engage with the collection online, to download scholarship about it, to use it as educational resources and training material. I think it's just wonderful. And I think that every time they decide to curate something, every time they decide to open up the collections, it's something that everyone should find the time to engage with.
Jesal, what about you?
I thought about this and I don't have an answer.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I don't have any one collection that I admire, but there are collectors and their way of collecting that I admire. And I would say Anurag Khanna. I think he's very sensitive and very discerning, and I really, really, really admire the way he collects.
Yeah.
So
that's a great one, actually.
sorry?
That's a great one. He's like, he's just got that thing, that special understanding.
So and I'm saying this, but what I personally have never seen his collection, but we have had a lot of conversations and we've spoken a lot and we discuss a lot. We've met, so and I do want to visit him someday and and work on it. So yeah, I nothing else to say on this.
No, I think we end on a great note, actually. So thank you so much, Uma and Jesal, for doing this. We'll just open up the Q&A for the audience, and then after one or two questions, I think we could wrap up the session.
Yeah.
Anybody in the audience, if you have any questions?
I have a question for Jesal. Can I ask?
You can just call me. Yeah, go for it.
No, I just want to know, Jesal, for a person like you, so entrenched in the arts, how do you collect? And
Ow.
yeah, do you buy sometimes? And like, how is it, with different artists and things like that? Because you build relationships and with young artists, I think that must be such a thing, like when do you decide, that okay, maybe, this is something I want it.
So, I was very tempted. Okay.
Ah, ah.
So I'm not a collector. Okay, because I just feel that you you have to have a boundary.
Hmm, hmm, hmm,
Okay, so that's been a very conscious decision I've taken, that I will not collect.
ah,
I will study, but I will not collect. Okay,
yeah,
but there have been times when I've been very tempted, and I've been wanting to buy, and even artists were like ready to gift me and
yeah.
everything, but I don't. Right? And it's just because you wanna just keep that to that, right? You don't want.
No, I completely understand, especially in the position that you're in. I think it's wonderful that's the way you want to keep like just that purity of like,
Yeah,
I am research academician.
right.
That's
That's
how
it.
I'm,
And I love certain artists. I suggest them to people, but yeah, I want to say that when I do come across certain artists, and I feel that they're in need of a financial support, whatever I can do, I do it. Okay, but I don't do it with the aim to collect their work or anything, because as I said, I want to keep it very clear. See, you can't be a researcher and a collector. It doesn't,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it can get misread. So one has to keep it clear.
And you don't have to collect contemporary or modern South Asian art. Maybe
Yes.
you'll be doing something else. You'll be looking at some other thing, you
Sure,
know?
you've given me an idea. I collect a lot of books. I have like crazy amount of books. I don't have the space to keep it in Bombay, so I've got a space somewhere else, and my library is there. But yes, I love books, and I love collecting old books
Oh, lovely.
because I like books and I like archives. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
You're a collector, just,
yeah, we all are.
Yes, Purvi, please go ahead with your question.
Hi, Uma and Jesal. It was really nice to hear you talk. I've only ever read your name in places and at shows, so it's also finally nice to put a face to your names. Actually, I wanted to just ask a follow-up question based on the discussion that you just had. Uma said she understands why you want to keep, like, just be an academician and not collect work. I still am unable to grasp how you are able to keep that temptation at bay, and also why. Because, for example, I'm an artist, and as much as I like to identify myself only as an artist, I very much do enjoy other people's art. To say that I'm an artist and I can only paint in a certain way and then only like my work would not be honest, right? And so I openly appreciate artworks of peers, especially because I am close to them. I understand their process, and it gives me. I mean, I have more of an insight about their practicing methods, and then automatically, I levitate towards collecting my peers' works. I'm just trying to understand, why are you stopping yourself from collecting if you do actually enjoy it? I mean, like, what is the shame or the harm? Like,
No,
I'm
no,
just,
there's no
I
shame.
mean, it's not, I mean, I'm just trying to work my mind through it.
Sure, sure.
There's no shame.
I'll be more specific and more out there straight. So, I have my own foundation, Bodhana Arts and Research Foundation, that researches and publishes and does books. And I'm kind of self-funding and, independently do things. I'm sure we all know that research and curation doesn't really pay you like a lot of money, right? It's more just done. So I choose to utilize my funds towards education. That's a choice I'm making. So of
That
course
makes
I'm
sense.
tempted. I'm very tempted to, like, I was very tempted to buy Sheetal's work. I loved her show, Sheetal Gatani. Okay. But I can
Okay, that
use the
makes
funds to
that
bring out a book.
yeah, that makes sense because I was actually about to ask you earlier, like, are you scared you're going to lose all your money just collecting works? Because that is something that I am wary of also, even with collecting books. I mean, I come from a graphic design background, and then the way artist books are,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
really
No, so I
appeal to
spend like
me.
mad on books. Like my mother tells me, like, what are you doing? And whatever. So my family thinks I'm mad. Like I have over 5,000 books, okay, and I have no space to keep it in Bombay. I really have a library on subjects that I am very interested, which is abstraction or miniatures or sculptures or primitive art. And I kind of so you choose, right? Like because you can't do everything. So these are the
Yeah,
choices that I'm making because see, art collecting and then buying, then you need the
yeah,
space,
yeah.
storage. So you have to be pretty focused, and for some reason I'm just very focused and people don't like it. So uh
I need to
but
learn that from you, Jesal. I really need to learn that from you.
And I just have
Because
another
I
quick
have equal
question.
amount of all of my money going into art, books, and all projects. And at the end of it, I'm just roaming around with no money in my pocket
we
perpetually.
all learn, life and time teachers, so be patient.
Also, Jesal, since you're in the research field, I'd love to know if there are any online resources for young collectors as myself to read more about artists, to have a different point of view. It could be like a debate about what something meant, or like just like interesting new perspectives rather than just getting the textbook or the internet version of, okay, this is when the artist was born, this is when he died, and da 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 da.
Sure.
Like,
So that's, I think we don't have ready material. You have to engage with the gallery or the artist, or go to this, art fairs to get that opportunity to interact with we don't have, that's again and again what I'm saying. We have a dearth of material out there. Okay, like we need like 10 art fairs and 10 researchers, and we don't even have people. Let me tell you, like, see, when I work on all these projects, it's very difficult for me to find interns to assist, for the Barwe project, I had 4 or 5 people assisting me and helping me because it was so much I couldn't do it, you know um so look, we are growing, we are going out there, it's going to take time, and till that's not there, we have to make our own bridges. That's all I
yeah.
can say.
Because I remember when I was in Baroda, for example, like our regular library didn't have as many great books on painting. So our professors and our alumni used to kind of donate books and collect books for the painting department, where we used to sit and have a great time. But after I passed out from Baroda, I suddenly felt like this void, and I
Yes.
had to start buying. But like, how much can
How
you
much
buy?
can you buy? I agree with you. So there's see, okay, there is a lot of material available online. Not just, I mean, you won't find India so much, and not so much on contemporary still, but the Asia Art Archive, or I'm not sure if Khoj has, but there is a lot of material available online if you want to study. Western art, of course, a lot.
Yeah,
Indian art, I know it's very restrictive, and like I know
yeah,
if you like, I myself know that if I type something on Gaitonde and Barve, there'll hardly be any material online. Okay,
right.
I get that, but yeah, ढूंढने पे तो अभी there was one quote. ढूंढने पे तो भगवान भी मिलते हैं, अभी तो गूगल ने सब कुछ इजी कर दिया है. Sorry, no joke. But you know what? As even what me and Uma have been trying to say in this entire thing, what I would kind of in a way put it under an umbrella, is that we are becoming a very cohesive and a very um, collective kind of an industry which is supporting one another.
Yeah.
You just ask, you just
Yeah.
go out there and ask, and you see what ways will open up for you. Trust me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I come with that outlook that anything is possible. Like generally, I feel like, see, like Uma asked me, how did I do this? The CSMVS project, the rhizome project. Okay, persistence. That's all I want to say. There was no deep pockets. Okay, Harsh, I didn't fund the project. It all just happened. Okay, so
Noted.
ask, spell it out. Okay, like you're an artist also, right? So have the faith, put it out there, man. It's all possible.
I love the positivity.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say something very funny.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I'm very hungry.
Okay, right after you finish your dinner, I'm going to call you and eat your brains.
No, sorry, I'm not eating lunch. And I'm genuinely hungry. But yes, sorry. If there are any questions or anything.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Uma. Thank you so much, Jesal. And thank you so much for doing it. Once again, thank you so much for doing this. And we hope to engage with you a lot more in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely. As long
Thank
as you're planning to publish books.
I support that. Thank
I
you. It's
want
been
to.
fun.
I
Yeah,
want
it's been
to,
a
but
very
we'll
fun
have
conversation.
we want to publish books, but that's what I'm going to talk to you about after you have your dinner.
No buts. We just have to do it.
Yeah, we will. I'll call you. I'll
Yeah,
call you.
sure.
Okay, bye. Thank you, Uma. Thank you, Jesal.
Thanks,
Thank
Uma.
you.
Was
See you.
fun
Good night.
chatting with you.
It was so fun, Jessica. Lovely. All right.
Yeah.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.